Hey guys, Mad Munchkin here. This is another unscripted video to follow up with the how I make my videos video. Trying saying that 6 times fast over and over. I wanted to show you guys how I draw. This is not a tutorial video. This is not me telling you how to draw. This is showing you how I draw. I have done videos similar to this in the past, but now I think I have a better way of showing you. And before we start off, the live stream I'm going to leave up here, and this is because it only seems to be recording 5 minutes at a time. So forgive me again if the video ends up feeling very episodic. To answer some questions that a few of you have asked, I usually draw with traditional paper and pencil first, scan it in, and then colour it in Photoshop. You can use programs like Artweaver, or various other things like that. GIMP is a very popular one. I will post links here probably so you guys can get them. Those are free programs, very similar in layout to Photoshop. They're very limited in what you can do, and you will realise that if you have used Photoshop before. So I'm going to open up Photoshop here. So I've got two different files opened up here. This is a blank one just with a background layer, and that's what we will be using later on to show you how to draw a pony. But first I want to show you some really basic stuff, okay? I'm not going to just start drawing because that will just confuse people. So what I'm going to do is, I've got two various layers here. And the first layer is the generic shape. I say first layer, I actually mean layer 2. So I'm going to show you that. And what I've done is I've drawn in red the basic shapes that make up a pony character. The reason why I've chosen pony is because the majority of artists that ask me questions are from the brony fandom. And I do have a pony OC called Mad Munchkin, and she does have her human form, but most people who ask me questions about drawing are bronies, so I've chosen this as an example. But you can transfer this into any character that you decide to draw, whether they be human or another animal. The basic generic shapes of a pony is 3 circles, 4 lines, and basically an upside down U shape. You know, it's the head, just a basic straight round circle, and when I draw circles, I never usually have them join. I just draw them really quickly like that. They don't have to be perfect circles. So 3 circles, head and the back. The back is usually about the same size as the head or slightly smaller, and the main body is quite big. Not too big. And with Maddie, she is a Shetland pony, so she's quite short. So when I actually show you the base drawing, the legs are very short. So let's get rid of that, and I will show you, in fact, actually I'll show you on top of it. I've drawn it in different colours so you can see. I've drawn it in blue so you can differentiate between the two. So as you can see, the red is just basic guidelines, but the actual blue is not straight traced onto the red. It's just to show you where things are going to go, okay? So it's very basic, so I'll get rid of the red. I haven't drawn the hair or anything on yet, so you can see the body better. And so, you know, basic shapes like this, and then I'll draw the hair later. But before we do that, I am going to show you how I drew all the blue bits. When you when you open a new file, you've just got a background layer. Now people tend to draw straight onto the background layer. Now, but the problem you have with that, if you want to move the character at all, you can't do that because it's on a background layer. And that basically means, I'm just going to unlock it. What that basically means is when you try to move it, you're also moving the white background. So if I select this, then cut it, see, it takes away the white as well. You don't want that to happen. You want to be able to take what you've drawn on its own. To do that, you need to draw another layer. So go to layer at the top here, draw another layer, create another layer, sorry. New layer. Name it sketch because this is the base sketch that you're going to draw. Press OK. And as you can see, another layer comes up. So I'll show you. If you're drawing something, you click move, it moves what you've drawn and not what is underneath. Think of layers as different pages. You know, the bottom layer is, you know, solid white paper, but any layers that are checked like this means they're transparent. So think of them as tracing paper. So this is why I've done them on two separate, so you can have the two either side. Whatever program you're using, whether it be Photoshop or Artweaver or Sketchbook Pro or anything like that, just practice and play around with it to see what you can do with it and get used to it. If you're using a drawing tablet like me and you've never used it before, you really need to practice, because when you draw, you're not looking at the pen, you are looking at the screen. And for your brain to actually click into that, it could take a few times over to get your brain to work differently. So with the first layer, the sketch layer, I'm just going to basically do a very similar thing to what's over here. So we've got the guidelines. With the first layer of the guidelines, I set the flow to about 30% and the opacity is at 100%. So you've got the head, the main body, and the circle at the back is for... So that's basically your base. And when I say base, people tend to think about actual pony bases. I don't use pony bases. I just draw my own base, which is... A base is the skeleton of your drawing. If you're using bases that people have used before, you're not really going to learn anything. You're going to learn how they draw. You're not going to learn to draw yourself. In other words, if you sit down with a bit of paper and a pen and you don't have a computer, what are you going to do? You're going to feel a bit lost. So you really need to figure out how to draw bases yourself. If you use bases that are already created, you are going to be stuck. If you're sitting in a park somewhere, not a computer in sight, it's, you know, just basic, really basic drawing guidelines here. Pretend that you don't have access to a computer. If you suddenly lose power, you can't suddenly say, oh no, I can't draw anymore. You know? You can't rely on computers and bases drawn by other people all the time. You need to learn how to draw bases yourself. This will help you to invent your own style of drawing. You can be inspired by other people's drawings and of course use reference from the show to get the shapes right and things like that, but never just straight copy them. You can use them as reference to figure out how they're made up, but if you're just copying something that already exists, you're not really making a new drawing. You're replicating a drawing. You're copying it. Now, when you're practicing, that is a great way to learn. But when you're creating actual original art, you need to be able to know how to construct a drawing from scratch without copying anything. Obviously use reference, and I will show you the difference between copying and referencing later, but for now let's get going with this drawing. This is all opinionated stuff here, you don't have to take it all on board, you know, I'm just telling you what I think. It's not necessarily what you have to do. So I apologise if I sound very forceful. So here's the base layer, the base sketch here. So I'm going to make a new layer, change the colour over here to blue. I'm going really fast, so I apologise. What I did there, I just did another new layer. So you go up here to layer, new, click layer, and another layer comes up. I don't need another layer, so I'm going to press cancel. You change the colour, you go over here to the colour picker. I was on red, so you just change it to whatever colour you want. I usually go to blue and, you know, just pick whatever you want and go OK. Now with this part I want to change it so it's not so solid. The way I do that is I go up here to opacity, I put that to about 60% and then the flow to 16. Now, the reason why I do that is you end up with a brush that ends up looking a bit like a pencil. With this, if you're drawing straight on the top of it, you can change the opacity of the layer itself. You have opacity here, you can change that so it fades a bit. So, you know, you can just use it as trace instead. Make sure when you do that so that you go back to the layer that you want to draw on. The last thing that you want is to end up with your sketch layer on the same thing, because then you won't be able to take this layer away. So when you draw your initial sketch, this is the part I like to keep quite loose. I hate seeing things that are too clean and streamlined. So what I usually do is for this, you make the guidelines. So this is where the base of the head meets the rest of the body, so that's where the jawline is. So that's where the snout ends. You just kind of keep redrawing it until you're happy with the placement of things. Things don't have to be perfect right off the bat, so... Okay, so when it comes up and it meets roughly the area where the top of the circle is, you start curving it round. Again, the base, the red is just guidelines, so you can see where everything is going. It's not necessarily right where things are going to go. I keep saying, nothing is set in concrete. Now for the ear, the placement of the ear, this is where the forehead ends, here, around here, so you follow that line, and that's where the ear should leave the head, around here. So depending on how tall you want the ears to be. Think of it as a sort of upside down V shape. So here we go with the body. The body is made up of two circles. The one at the front is slightly bigger than the one at the back. Not too much, not too big, just maybe around the same size, maybe slightly bigger than the head. So you've got that base here. See where the jawline ends, you bring it round. As you can see, it comes round, it follows the jawline round in an S shape. It's all about follow through. Try and keep it quite soft and rounded. Try not to get it angular. It depends on the style of drawing, to be honest. This is just how I do it. I like keeping things quite round. When I draw ponies anyway. When I draw anything else, they tend to be a little bit more angular, and that's just because of the way that what's inspired it. Obviously in the show the characters are very round. Very round. Not a lot of sharp edges to them at all. So with the neck, on this one it's got a little bit more fat there and I don't like that, so we're going to bring it round like that. And with the back it's a similar S shape, except it doesn't have as much of an angle as the bottom, because obviously this is the spine. So with the spine you follow the shape of the head round in an S shape. See where that ends, you just curve it round around the flank like this, and make sure that these lines meet here. You don't have to draw it, but as long as if you did draw it and you curved it round, they would meet. You don't have to draw that in because the guideline should roughly do it for you, so you don't have to do it. So if I hide the red here, see it's a very odd shape at the moment, but it will make sense once the legs go in. With the legs here, the front legs, they need to be at an angle because obviously they are supporting the front, they are supporting the head and the main body, so they need to kind of be at the bottom where the cheek is. They need to be around there in a normal standing pose. So think of it, just be as practical as possible. Look at real life, how if you look at horses, the front of the leg, they come forward so that the front is supported. They're very front heavy and the bottom doesn't have much fat to them at all, so the back legs aren't supporting as much. They're for motion rather than support, really. So with the legs at the top, they start thin and get fatter as you go to the bottom. And with the front, it's a straight front and then it curves and it's a slight curve at the back. Now for these, this is the one at the back, so this represents this leg here and this line represents this leg. Now with the guidelines, sometimes I put the lines in the wrong place, so but let's, for the sake of this video, just follow that shape anyway. And then you curve it round. Now with Maddie, because she's a Shetland pony, her legs are a lot thicker than usual standard pony shapes. And she's also a lot shorter, which is why in the video for why I hate alicorn horses, Mary Sue is a lot taller than Maddie is. Now in the show, that's the norm. Most alicorns are a lot taller than the standard size pony, apart from Twilight. She's only slightly taller, it's not even noticeable. But with Maddie, if I drew her with a normal pony character, she is noticeably shorter. And not freakishly short, but just proportioned differently. So the legs aren't as long. Now for the sake of this video, I've changed the length of the leg slightly so it's more like how you would want to draw your OC. See, these lines here you won't see once I ink it, but it's just to show you the placement of it because it needs to make sense. Now for the back, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because the back, as I say, this is for motion, it's not really supporting much. So the angle of it, the angles of the back legs are different. They are bent in a C shape as opposed to straight. So the way you draw them, you always draw I tend to draw the top first. So this is where the hip is here with the guide. So you just draw that round, and it's just a basic backwards C. And then you draw that, you have it follow through with where the guide is, and it goes straight down. So it does come forward in a similar shape to the front legs, except with the back, slightly different rules here. So you have it curved round like that. When it gets to about this point here, it needs to... It will look very messy. That's just how I do it. I'm very sketchy, very rough, because I like to keep things loose. You will see that with some of my commission pieces, they're not solid. The lines are very feathery, and that's just how I like to draw things. So then you just give that a little bit more fat there. And the back leg is the same, except it's just behind slightly. So there you have your basic pony shape. If I get rid of that, so you've still got some guidelines here, but don't worry about those, because this is just the sketch layer. Now with the hair, I'm going to do it in a separate layer, just to show you guys. With the hair, you don't need to draw guidelines for this. All you need to do is use the sketch line as the base for the hair. The way that I draw hair, I'm going to draw it in a different colour so you can see what I mean, and I'm going to draw it in pink. With Maddie's hair, her hair is very much like Rainbow Dash or Derpy. She has a fringe that comes right over her face, over here. And when she's not wearing her hat, you can't see where the hair is growing from. It's very spiky, very unkept, and a little bit rugged. And that's just how I like her hair to look, because that's how my hair tends to look in real life, unless I spend hours on it. It's very untamed. What I usually do, I start with the top, and if you look in the mirror at how your hair grows, if you have long hair like I do, really study it. Look at the shape of it. If you hold a strand out, it tends to be, if I draw things, say this is where the hair starts. So say this is the end of the hair and this is the root of it. How it usually goes is, it goes like this. If you're holding a strand of it, lots of other strands come with it. So you end up with feathers here. And that's the basic shape of how I draw hair. You don't have to draw individual strands or anything, you just give the feeling of individual strands. When you're drawing hair, think about where it's growing from. It's growing from the base near the back of the skull. So it's basically growing from behind the ear. So if you draw a guideline like this, if you're drawing hair that grows over the face, where does the hair end? Usually around the front of the eye. So I haven't drawn the eye in yet, but it's just rough placement here. When you draw anything, when I draw anything, it's usually basic S shapes. Everything is made up of S shapes with me. Even the ear is an S shape. You can't really tell. An S doesn't necessarily just mean that. It means it can be like that, or, you know, it's got a slight curve at the top or whatever, you know. The fringe is the part that I spend ages on. This is where the end is, so you bring it up, make sure that the bit at the front is as thick as it possibly can be, then bring it round, and there is your fringe. So the end of it needs to look kind of feathery, and then you can add a little bit of feathers up here, but make sure where it's the thickest it's quite smooth, because you're just giving the illusion of various strands. You don't have to draw individual strands. So what I tend to do is you draw thick here, and then either side a little bit thin, and then another thin one here. So now with Maddie's hair, she has quite long hair, and what I like to do is have some of it coming over her shoulders. So we'll draw the basic shape here of it coming around. Make sure the follow through is right. And she's got quite thick hair, because if you look at Shetland ponies, their hair is very thick. I like it to come round over the shoulder and then It's so simple. I think it's so simple because it just comes so naturally to me. And with others, if it doesn't, it can take a while to get it right. You just have to look at real life. How do things behave and move and sit in real life? Obviously with hair, hair will sit on whatever surface it's placed on in a certain way. It follows gravity. But it also has its own kind of bounciness to it. Maddie's hair is based on my hair in real life and it's quite wavy. I like to put a little bit of curve to it and quite thick. So let's get a little bit more. Now on this same layer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the feathers on her legs because they're drawn in just the exact same style. So we'll go down here, and with the hair on the front, I tend to... It's difficult to explain. Again, I keep saying this is just how I do things. It's not necessarily the only way. Lots of various different styles of doing things. Now for the tail, it's exactly the same as the hair except it's mirrored. So where does the hair for the tail grow from? It grows from, if you follow through from the skull right round the spine, the tail continues from the spine. So the main bone of the tail just comes from the top here. I like to have the tail be a guide back to the body, so what I mean by that is the S shape needs to tend to have it coming round. So when the eye is following the shape, you're going from the head right round, and then it will come back and it leads straight back to the eye again. I'm drawing her tail a lot longer this time round, just as an example. So you make it quite thick from the top, very thick, and then as it comes to the tip, you make it thinner. So very bushy tail. Okay, so that's your basic pony shape. Now for the expression, this is the part that I love doing. I don't usually leave it till the end, but usually it's one of the first things I draw. But for the sake of this video, I'm drawing it last. So we'll zoom in on the head, and for the placement of the eye, in fact, I'm going to make it in a new layer. The placement of the eye can be very tricky. And the way that I do it, see the line here that I've left? That's the base of the ear. For the eye, if you follow the, if you put your finger to your ear, where the whole of the ear is on a human, you follow that round, bottom of the ear meets the top of the eye. And that's what this line is. So this is the top here. So you just draw, the way that I draw eyes is very Disney-esque. It's basically a D shape that's pointing upwards. So you draw the back of the D, come around like this, and the bottom of the eye should meet where the snout is. So if you draw the guideline here, it's a bit further down than it should be, but it's just basically it should point back to the snout. It's very D shape, or the shape of a guitar pick, sometimes I use that term. And then with the cheek, if she's smiling, the mouth, usually in this area here, should meet the bottom of the eye. So you follow the snout round, this is where the mouth is, and I'm going to have her smiling with her mouth closed, so the mouth stops about there. But when you smile, if you look in the mirror when you smile, your cheek rises up and squishes your eye. So you want that to be implemented into the character. So you just give a basic shape there, and you give a little bit of shape there. And with the snout, it's a very simple shape that I use, is just to show where the nostrils are. It's just a shape just like that, really simple. It's just a curve like that, really simple. Tends to be a little bit tighter at the top here. Now with the pupil, depending on what direction you want her to look in, it looks like her eye is closed and she's like in a squee expression a little bit, but her eye is actually open in so with pupils, I don't draw them the same way as they are shown in the show. I don't like them big like this. I don't tend to do that because it just makes them look a bit too cute. And I like, especially with Maddie, she's a total cynic, so I tend to draw the pupils quite small. So it's more like this. in one of the expressions in the videos, her pupil is big, and that's when she's looking at the viewer and she's happy about something. And that's the only time I have the pupil massive. Any other time the pupil is really tiny. And the way I draw pupils, if I draw them over here slightly bigger, is a circle and then another circle inside and then a smaller circle over here. Now with these, the circles here is basically representing highlights. An eye is never solid black. Never solid black or solid colour. It always has highlights in it. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see there's a little circle there. And if I change to black, just to show you what I mean, if you colour that whole thing is, the eye just looks really lifeless. But the minute that you add a little bit of white, see, there's so much more life in that eye now. With just little dots like that. Makes all the difference. So I'm getting rid of that. Now this is the part that you need to make sure that everything's in the right place. And looking at this, the eye is in the complete... The back of the head is a little bit too far back. So what I'm going to do... Make sure I'm in the right layer first of all. To correct any problems, if you don't want to redraw anything, you can cheat. And the way that I cheat, I usually cover up mistakes with the hair. And because Maddie has such long hair, you can get away with doing that. So as you can see, this line here, it should be further in. So I'm just going to hide that with some of the hair just coming in like this. I'll maybe make the eye a little bit bigger as well, actually. She looks a bit emo-ish now, because of that black lines around there, but that will be corrected later. She is a bit of a punk, so I'm sure she'll forgive me for that. As you can see, drawing is very time consuming. You can't rush art. Just take your time with it, you know, just have fun, practice, change things around, keep things loose so you're not restricting or limiting yourself too much. Okay, so I don't just keep going with that because I tend to go over my drawings over and over, but for the sake of this video, so it's as short as possible, I'm going to try and keep things simple. Now we've done all of this, you can blend all these layers together because now I'm happy with where everything is, so I'm going to blend everything. The way to do that, open your layers and just have a look to see anything that you don't want to be blended, you can just delete. So I'm going to delete that layer there with the base because I don't want that to be seen. Now with everything else, click the top layer, go to layer and go down here and you can see merge down. What that does, it will blend the two layers together. Now I'm going to blend the bottom one as well. So there we go. So everything is in one layer now. And now for inking, I'm going to make a new layer. Oops. New layer. Okay. Change the brush color to black. That's okay. Go up to opacity, make it 100%. And the flow... I'm going to change the brush type to hard. Actually, it's on hard already. Fail. Let's see, how do we play around? Do we want it quite hard or soft? I'm going to go for quite hard, so set it to about 70. So there's a little bit of softness there. Oops. When I ink things, I tend to make it about 3 pixels. So we'll zoom in, we'll start with the eye. With the inking part, go back and hide as you go. Hide the bottom guidelines as you go. So let's give it a little bit more expression there. Now with the eyebrow, you should start from the base of the eye, follow it up, and then make sure that meets the front of the eye. But because it's covered up with the hair, you don't have to do that. hopefully you've drawn everything on the right layer. So if I hide this, you will see just the sketch lines. Isn't she cute? So now, because you've hidden that, you can see if you need to add more definition to various places, and usually you end up having to put more detail on the eye. Okay, so this first video is just to show you the sketch and inking process that I use anyway. Everyone uses different ways of doing things. A lot of people tend to make things a little bit more streamlined. I like to keep things quite loose and sketchy. That's just my style. So in the next video I will show you how I colour. That is a really fun part. It takes another video to do because I colour in a very soft, and I use a lot of lights, refractions in my colouring, so there's no solid colour in my style of colouring, so that will take a whole video to explain how I do that. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope this will help some of you guys, or just give you a little bit of an insight into how I do things. I hope this has helped some people that are learning how to draw. But just to say, please don't copy my style of drawing. Use it as an example, but don't just straight copy it. That's all I will have to say. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. I'm Mad Munchkin. Stay creative.